What is going on, FA Nation? I'm Justin Fensterman along with Ryan Hallam, and it's time for another edition of 5 on 5. Let's tell you how this is going to go. But before we even do that, Mr. Hallam, how's everything? We haven't talked in a long time.
Fancy, everything is good, man. As good as it can be, of course, right now. Living the dream, doing everything I can for Fantasy Alarm, trying to keep people entertained and just everything. Yeah, man. Of course, everybody loves to do more, but right now things are not that bad.
Yeah, Ryan Hallam on Twitter at Fighting Chance covers NFL, MLB, but most importantly, Survivor.
Yes.
Fine, you're a big Survivor guy, and I know that you had the winner of Survivor, Winners at War, Tony V, in one of your example lineups on the site as you were writing playbooks every single week. That could be a topic, sir, so you better get ready there. I just gave you a little bit of a clue. But for all of those out there who have never seen 5 on 5 before, what I am going to do is I'm going to give Ryan Hallam over here 5 topics. We're going to go through each topic one by one. And once I'm done explaining what the topic is, then once Ryan starts talking, he's going to have 5 minutes to talk about whatever he wants within the topic. Now, he can go the entire 5 minutes, or we can have a nice conversation. It's up to him, whatever he wants. He's the superstar. It's his game. It's his play. He is the action star of this flick right here. So once 5 minutes is up, I'm going to be keeping time. Once Ryan hears the buzzer, that's it. He can't say another word about the topic. Ryan, how you feeling going into this?
Love it. Let's do it.
Yes, I love your energy. All right, Ryan, we were just talking about Survivor. With the season finale happening, Tony V won his second Survivor title, $2 million. You talked about it on the site. We talked about it all the time, that this guy dominated from start to finish. Not one vote cast against this guy throughout the entire season, which is absolutely impressive. It shows just how strong his social game is. Now, Winners at War, Ryan, you had Boston Rob, you had a few other of those characters, those veterans who were awesome, Sandra, but I got to ask you, with Tony's second win, is he the greatest Survivor player of all time?
I don't know if you can say who is the greatest Survivor player of all time. He may have just played the greatest Survivor game of all time, because I can't think of anyone who's gone through the entire time without getting a vote. It may have happened once before. I don't know. I don't have every vote memorized. But he came in with a plan, and he executed it perfectly. And if you watch the finale last night, he did talk about it for a second. You know, what he's known for is playing 2,000 miles an hour from day one to the end. It worked from the first time. Second time, if you remember Game Changers, he came in the first day. People were collecting wood to build the shelter, and he's like, and like ran to the woods, said he was going to look for idols. Like, he just went crazy. Then he's like trying to bury himself in the ground to try to get to listen to people's conversation. Like, he couldn't play the same way twice. So thankfully, the third time, he was smart enough to like, okay, I can't do that again. This is my reputation. Everybody knows what I'm doing. If I'm out, they're going to know what I'm doing. Had to change what he did, which he did perfectly. He played, good Tony for, 20 days or so, 25 days or so. And then when he saw his opportunity, he then put his foot on the gas, and then it worked perfectly. And, he won a bunch of challenges, but there was a 2 or 3 or 4 tribal councils where he had no protection and he did not get a vote. How that happened, I have no idea. I don't know if people overestimated their own game, but everyone watching it, and everyone on the jury certainly seemed that he was running the show, and he absolutely was. And obviously, when the votes came at the end, he was. Why I say I don't know if he's the best ever. It's kind of like, to me, Survivor's like trying to figure out the best quarterback. There's so many other factors that come into play. A lot of times guys come in, or not guys, whoever comes in, and people go after him right away. A lot of times the best players don't win, which is, I think, why it took a while for them to do this all winners. I mean, let's look at Ozzy or Joe or Suri or Malcolm, Kelly Wentworth. I mean, these are all legendary players who've been on multiple times, never was able to get to the end. But it's hard to say, that they're not awesome players. It's just that people knew if we don't get rid of them, we're not winning this game.
Ryan, I feel like I'm about to be Jeff Probst over here. You use the word perfect a couple of times. You only say perfect if that player, in fact, played a perfect game. And that's what Tony did. And this is not just another season of Survivor. This is supposed to be the dream team of Survivor contestants. This is the all-star game right here, Ryan. These were all winners, every single contestant. And you use the word perfect. How can someone that's not the greatest of all time play such a perfect game against winners?
That is a fair point. It's maybe you're right. Maybe he is. He played the best game. What about someone like Sandra, who's won 2 times before? He's just now won for the second time. I mean, this is someone who's not good at challenges and did something amazing to get to the end, not once but twice.
Let's talk about Sandra for a second there, Ryan, with that smirk on your face, because you know what I'm about to say. She was, for those that don't remember, for those that watched the show, she was in this season. But as soon as she went to the extinction, then all of a sudden she decided to wave the white flag. How can you say that someone is potentially the greatest player at their game if they're gonna quit?
2 things. One, if I had $2 million in the bank, I'm not laying in the grass. I'm not laying in the dirt. I'm not getting stuff crawling all over me and not eating. I got $2 million in the bank, and I know I'm not getting. There's no way she was winning any challenge. It didn't matter what the challenge was, unless it was sitting on the ground for as long as you possibly could, that she was winning that. No chance. She had no chance of getting back in. So what's the point? She probably lives a very nice life. She probably has a pretty nice house. She probably eats and drinks whatever she feels like it. What is she going to do to sit on that beach for it had to be like 25 days left when she got voted out. I understand the rationale, but man, if I was her, I probably would have bailed too.
And she's not the only 2-time winner anymore either.
No,
so she doesn't have that distinction. Very quickly, and I want to see if you agree with me on this, Ryan. I watched leading up to this, I did a little homework, watching past seasons with Boston Rob, who's essentially the godfather of the game as he's been named. However, I got to say this, Tony's game might be a little bit better than his. Very quickly, more aggressive game, Tony or Rob?
Well, Tony the first time, but I think overall, Rob played smarter until this time. Rob came in this one and he was completely overmatched. Too much dad bod.
That is it. The buzzer has sounded. Man, you mentioned Sandra. Now you got me in a bad mood. Now I want to ask you some not nice questions. But instead, I'll wave that off. I'll let it brush off my shoulder right here, and we'll move on to topic number 2. Let's get into a little NFL, since you do cover NFL for FantasyAlarm.com. Ryan, I'm going to ask you, man, you've been an industry member for a long time in the fantasy sports space. So we hear things, we read things, we start to see trends go a certain way, especially when we're in quarantine, and all we have is time to think about everything, including fantasy football. So let me ask you this. Who is one NFL player for fantasy that you're in on that others might not be as into going into the 2020 season?
I think I have a few, but let's start with probably the one that will probably get the most arguments, and that's Philip Rivers of the now Indianapolis Colts. Granted, he looked pretty terrible last year. 23 touchdowns, 20 picks, some really ugly ones. I mean, it got to the point where you were just waiting for the interception to come. A lot of times they're coming down the last drive, had a chance to win the game, and he threw something stupid. However, and he's getting old, granted. Some things have changed. He's not on the Chargers anymore. He's now on the Colts with one of the best offensive lines in football. A pretty decent running game, and one really good receiver, and a few guys that aren't so bad, and a decent tight end. When Rivers has options and when he's had an offensive line, he's been a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he's had countless 4,000-yard seasons. He had multiple 30-touchdown seasons. So while last year was really bad, and there's a chance, everyone falls off the cliff. Father Time gets everyone eventually, except for Barry Bonds, of course. That's possible. However, I really like him in the situation, and he's not even being considered, in my opinion, at all. Like, barely a quarterback, too. Now, do I have the guts to make him my only quarterback? I don't know. I don't know if I do. But I think he's got a real shot to succeed. That line is just going to keep him upright. T.Y. Hilton is a great downfield receiver. Rivers still has a decent arm. They brought in Michael Pittman, the rookie, and Jonathan Taylor. So get a little help at wide receiver and running back. I think Rivers has a chance of having a really good season.
Ryan, about Phillip Rivers, the key that you said, it wasn't only the system, it was last year was the 20 interceptions that he threw. So, Ryan, I have to ask you this here because Phillip Rivers, and you kind of mentioned this before, QB2, but let's say you're one, kind of like I am. Phillip Rivers, up until last year, was that bailout option for me that if I missed on all of my late quarterback targets, I'd go after him. And he screwed me pretty badly last year, as you also alluded to. So what makes you think that the interception problems will be over? And would you recommend this guy as a desperation QB1 if we're going to be waiting a long time to draft our quarterbacks?
I think he's the biggest part of the interception problem was the time that he had. I don't think it was necessarily all decision making. I mean, he had 22 interceptions combined the previous 2 seasons. So I mean, he had a couple other 20 interception seasons in his career. I mean, he's been around a long time. It was like 2004. You were probably like 14 years old when he came into the league. So I mean, he has been prone to the turnover before. I can't deny that. I just think the time and a couple of decent weapons, and not that he had bad weapons. Keenan Allen is a good receiver. Mike Williams is, well, he's decent. They had Hunter Henry. They had weapons with the Chargers, so it's not like, the cupboard was completely dry. But I like him with Hilton. I like Michael Pittman as one of my rookie wide receivers that I like. And I just think that it's all so much for the quarterback. So much of NFL is won in the trenches or lost in the trenches, and it was getting so lost in the trenches. Will he be my quarterback 1? That is really tough. I feel like there are a lot of other guys in front of him with a lot fewer question marks. If you really, I don't know. I don't know that I would do it. I got to be honest. I think he's going to have a good season. I think I'd love him as my 2. Pick a guy who maybe you have a little question marks about. Maybe he's a little injury prone. I think he's a great kind of insurance policy. I don't know that I've got the stones to make him my 1, though.
There you go. Hey, this is your opinions, and it matters most here. You're the star of the show, Ryan. So with our final minute here, let's see if we can squeeze maybe just one more player out of you that you're in on that others in the industry might not be as into.
I'm going to keep it old school, or even keep it with old guys and go with Deshaun Jackson. It's trying to come back again in Philly this year. They did add some weapons, but he is a dynamic threat still, even at his age. He didn't last very long. He lasted 1 game, really, but it was 8 catches for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns, 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. He showed he still has explosiveness, even in his mid-30s. Again, he's a guy who you're going to be able to take really late. It's probably going to be your 4th or maybe even 5th wide receiver. But Wentz has the arm, and Jackson's got the speed. He can still catch. He's a motivated guy. He wants to prove everyone wrong all the time. So I think everyone's really counting him out. And if he can get just open down the field, Wentz can get him the ball.
There you go. Ryan Hallam there on 2 players that you should be looking at as the buzzer's about to sound. Hey, that's it for you, Ryan. But you gave us 2 players there that we can look at maybe late as total backup options, especially those that are in 20-round leagues as well. Best ball is very popular these days, Ryan, because we're all just looking for more stuff to do. And drafts are just so much fun. That's half the reason why we play the game. Now, let's talk about games here, because eventually, the quarantine's going to end, Ryan. There's certain things, and by certain amount of things, there are a lot of things we can't really do right now. Fun activities. So, Ryan, I'm asking you here, what are a couple of those fun activities that you haven't been able to do since quarantine and lockdown has begun that you are going to do as soon as quarantine ends?
Not necessarily as soon as quarantine ends, but the one thing I want to do the most is just go on vacation. Like, get the hell out of the house. We have one planned at the end of July. I'm hoping to God, I haven't lost faith that we're going to be able to still do it. But yeah, just getting away and being somewhere different, I think, is number 1. Absolutely. Go to the freaking movies. I think the one thing like this all taught us to not take little things for granted. Like, whoever thought like we couldn't get our haircut, couldn't go to the movies, couldn't go grab a beer, just like hang out? Like, who ever thought that this was going to happen? So I hope at least it's taken. Some people have taken it less for granted than others and just are doing it anyway. But just go to the movies. It would be cool. Sit there and I don't even go all that often, but just the option to get out and just get just let things go for a while. Go to a ball game. I like the Cardinals. They come play the Mets once a year. Me and my brother and a couple guys go down there every year to see the Cardinals play the Mets. I'd love to do that again. My 49ers are playing the Jets and the Giants this year, both in New York in weeks 2 and 3. So it's not even cold here in New York yet. So my team can come and play two trash bag teams that they should win both of them, and I'm 2 hours away. So those are all things I can't wait to do. We have a brewery nearby that does a 5K every Sunday. I don't run. My wife runs and some friends, and you could bring the dog. But afterwards, we hang out and have a few beers. We haven't done that in 2 months because so it's brewery runs. Again, I don't participate in the runs, but I participate in the brewery afterwards.
Ryan, you mentioned going to the movies. All we're doing is sitting inside right now. So you're telling me that as soon as quarantine is over, we're going to get to the vacation, by the way, in just a second. But you're telling me that as soon as quarantine ends, you want to go someplace where we're essentially confined inside? That makes absolutely no sense and was about the last response I was expecting from anybody I ever asked this question. And I've asked this question to a lot of people, sometimes, on a daily basis, in fact. You say the movies and indoor activity? Come on, where you're sitting there? You're pretty much doing that right now.
It's something new. It's something that we're used to. I like, especially now in the summer, that's like usually when good movies come out. Yeah, I'm watching the same crap on Netflix that everybody else is. It is inside, but the popcorn and the soda and just the experience and just... Yes, I'd like to go to the movies.
Unbelievable. Ryan Hallam, ladies and gentlemen. That's probably the first and last time. Yes, I think you are wrong. But again, that's just my opinion. This is your show, so everything that you say is right. You invented going to the movies, Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan, let's talk about this vacation for a second,
yes.
Because you got to be thinking that even once quarantine ends, you're not going to be rushing to go on an airplane, are you? It's
driving.
So germ-infested at airports. And, I don't mean to offend anybody that might work there or people that regularly travel for work, but it's just because people are traveling in and out. And my buddy actually caught swine flu on a plane. Sorry, everyone. Now you're going to, if you're going on the plane, it's going to be my fault.
Yes.
So are you immediately going to go running to the airport to go on vacation?
No, this is driving.
Okay, good. I just had to make sure.
But the other good thing, and this would be my kids and everything, going to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which should be nice. That was one other thing. Stuff to keep my kids occupied. Everyone is stuck with their kids all the time. Let something where they can just go do something for a little while.
Yeah, how can you get a little bit of a break from your kids, though? What can you do? Besides, here's the thing, Ryan. I'm not a parent yet, but everything that I have studied and everything that I have read, and your dog probably agrees with me, they can use it
kill her
as well. So besides getting them glued to an iPad or a movie, what constructive activities have you been able to give them? Your kids are a little bit older,
yes.
So it's not as easy to get them to do these kind of activities. But what have you been able to do to get them a little bit, let's just say, off your case?
All video games, baby. 24. No. The weather's been improving. We do a lot of walking. The dogs around the neighborhood, as you just heard them, and they may not be living after this is over. But as much as we can, try to get outside, ride our bikes, do something. But they're also not here every single day, so that's kind of a joke. They're here about half the time, so I do get some breaks from. But there are some times, man, we're just like still just stuck in the house together. I'm just like, boy, it'd be nice to have you guys to go do something or go hang out at your grandmother's house or have a friend over or something where we can do a little something different than just, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's one of my youngest daughters. If you move, so where are you going? I got help.
And that is it. Good timing by you, Mr. Hallam. And thank you very much for the advice here. We will all glue our children, existent or not, to the TV, to the iPad. And I know some are against that, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You got to. I know we all love our kids very, very much, the best things in the world, but you need a little mental break too. You need alone time from anyone. I have a wife. Sometimes I need alone time from her. I'm probably going to get kicked out of the house for saying that, Hallam. But anyway, let's move on to topic number 4. And topic number 4 is actually going to go back to sports because when we would do our chats, our NBA chats, which we're going to bring back starting next week on fantasyalarm.com, you would always join me and talk about the San Antonio Spurs. So I have asked people about this before because I'll just say this right off the bat. My favorite player of all time in the NBA and in sports for that matter is Tim Duncan of your Spurs. So I have to ask you, Ryan, who is essentially the most impactful Spurs player of all time in the franchise?
I loved Tim Duncan. I loved watching his entire career. I had a dog named Duncan at some point in my life. So that is how much I loved Tim Duncan. I think I'm still going to say David Robinson, and here's why. He brought the franchise from the absolute garbage dump of the NBA and immediately made them relevant for 25 years. The minute he got hurt, the 1 year, they won like 12 games. They won the lottery and drafted Tim Duncan. So even if it has a going away present the last few years, Robbie's like, I'll just sit this year out. We'll get my next superstar. I mean, he was just everything. He was a great ambassador to the league. He was a good guy. He was just his smile's infectious. Is good in the community. He was a dynamite basketball player. And probably my favorite thing about David Robinson ever was when he would get hurt. I'm sorry, not when he'd get mad at the ref, which almost never happened. Like he was not someone who would argue. And he's like 7 foot tall, and referees are normal sized people, 5'10", 6 foot or whatever. When he got mad, he would bend down and he would just get right in their face like this, and it was like the funniest thing to me because he had to go down like a foot to get in the referee's face, and he usually got a tee or got thrown out. And it almost never happened, but it was hilarious for me to watch him do that. Duncan, of course, comes into a new wave where they got Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Duncan is probably one of the top 10 players in the history of the NBA. Robbie's always got a little special place in my heart.
Here's the thing about that. With David Robinson, he had seasons where he had enough of a supporting cast to get over the hump in the West. He just wasn't able to do it because Hakeem Olajuwon was better than him. That was one of the biggest reasons.
That hurts.
Yeah, I know it hurts, but at the same time, Robinson wasn't winning this team titles. Now Tim Duncan comes in and he has to face the likes of Shaq out west, which is also not easy to get over that hump. But for some reason, David Robinson wasn't winning titles despite being named one of the 50 greatest players of all time. Tim Duncan comes along and gets David Robinson not 1, but 2 titles here. Whose credit is that?
Greg Popovich. I don't know, Fancy. It's really it's like 1 and 1A. It's so close. I also think that Duncan came in and just kind of emulated the way that Robinson acted. It was almost kind of like, here's how we do it here. And Duncan picked it up and ran with it. And yeah, he was great. And then he picked up Parker and Ginobili, and they won a bunch of titles. But it's like Robinson was like the godfather of this Spurs dynasty. He's how it started, and he led the transition. He won a couple times before he retired. And like you said, yeah, he had dealt with a couple of really tough guys in his career. I mean, then we had the Pistons and the Trailblazers were in there. Jordan, I believe, was even still going. So he was also playing like kind of at the tail end of the golden age of the NBA, where Duncan, and not that he didn't, like you said, he had to played LeBron in a couple finals, so he certainly had his own hurdles. He kind of had 3 really, really great players, him and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, where I think a lot of time Robinson was the clear admiral of that team.
Yes, and that's why he was nicknamed the Admiral, also because in the Navy,
He
So
wasn't.
with that, Ryan, let's spend 1 minute talking about this. The Last Dance is out right now, and one of the players featured, Dennis Rodman. That's a player that Spurs fans are familiar with. Now, you would think, arguably at the time, top 5 power forward in the league and definitely a top rebounder. Guy was winning rebound title after rebound title. Dennis Rodman goes with one of the best centers in the game at the time. Again, you're expecting it to work. Now, obviously, they were very different from a personality standpoint.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. How did Spurs fans essentially react to Dennis Rodman? Were they in favor of Dennis Rodman, or did they just think that he was essentially going to cause this team to be a volcano and explode from the inside?
When he first came, it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this guy? And then, he came with the Demolition Man hair, which evolved into all kinds of crazy stuff after that, and wearing 91. But he was like the guy that you love to hate, or people on the teams wanted him. He's a guy you hate when he's on somebody else's team, but you love him when he's on your team. He came to work. Of course, he can't score or anything, but he rebounded everything. I like Dennis Rodman.
Yes, I'm a big fan as well. That's something that we could definitely bond over. Final topic. Again, in the 5-on-5, Ryan Hallam has 5 more minutes to talk about a topic here. And let's go to food. Who doesn't like snacks? We all love snack time here.
I'm hungry right now.
It's become a very essential activity during quarantine. So eventually, Ryan, when quarantine's over, we can do these things called going to parties again. And with going to a party, Ryan, you can't just show up. You got to help keep the party going, whether it's with booze or food. So what is a snack that Ryan Hallam says is a must bring for him when he's going to the party? Like when somebody says, hey, you've never been to one of my parties before, what is Ryan Hallam's one seed GOAT snack that you're making and bringing to this party?
Most of the time, everything's hosted here, which I like because then I don't have to worry about driving anywhere afterwards. But we cannot have a get-together without buffalo chicken dip. That is the absolute. I have a friend who won't come unless I make it. But it is the number one seed. It's the GOAT. It's the absolute best. There's nothing better than it. It's horrible ingredients, but it's so good. And here's the important part, Fancy, and I don't know if you make it or how you do it, but you got to put the chicken, like grind it up in like the food processor, so that makes it extra scoopable on the chip. I've gone to a couple places and people make it and they just kind of try to shred it, and then you got big hunks of chicken. You can't have a big hunk of chicken on a chip or what, a cracker or whatever, however you eat it, or if you just spoon it out of a bowl. No judgment here, but you got to grind the chicken down, so that way you can just whatever it's on, it's just good.
Have you ever used canned chicken before? Because that breaks down easily and you don't have that problem, because that's what I use for my self-proclaimed award-winning buffalo chicken dip, Hallam.
I have never used canned chickens. They are in the meat section, but it's this little bag of like Purdue. So it's not like real good chicken. So it's probably just in a pouch instead of a can. I like to think it's a little bit better. But no, I've never used canned chicken. But it's like these little strips that come in like a blue pouch. Purdue, that's the ones that I buy.
So what are some of the ingredients you put in your buffalo chicken dip? If people aren't coming to your parties unless you have it, you got to be having something in there, Ryan. Something that could probably save us at this point in the pandemic.
It's ranch. It's buffalo sauce. It is the whole pack of cream cheese. I put some garlic powder in there.
Ooh.
Yeah, that gives it a little something. And chicken, that's it, man. It's simple. Pop it in the oven, like 20 minutes. Stir it up a little bit because it takes the cream cheese a little while to melt. Pop it back in, like 5 more minutes. Bam, you're good. It doesn't have to. That's the best thing about it. It's simple too. It's the most simple thing you can make, and it's delicious. I don't know how you can do any better.
I am the same way. That is actually my one seed dish as well. At some point, Hallam, when this is all over, we got to have a contest to see who makes the better buffalo chicken dip.
Hey, absolutely.
Maybe we get a few of FA Nation to somehow participate, although I don't think if I sent over in a package or something some buffalo chicken dip, it doesn't seem too appetizing.
I'm looking forward to trying these Impemba buffalo chicken balls that I've seen around Twitter. I don't know I have not taken a good look at the recipe there, but I am intrigued big
Oh,
time.
very much so. I mean, the ingredients are right there. He has them laid out for you. Cheyenne Bailey, one of our favorites here at FantasyAlarm.com, actually made them. They looked scrumptious. What
I've seen
other
a couple people
snacks?
made them. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Here's one that I didn't even eat when I was a kid, but I've come to love over time: deviled eggs. I never ate. I didn't eat mayonnaise when I was a kid, Fancy. Like I was the weirdest kid about eating, and I don't know. I don't know if the smell turned me off or what it was. But deviled eggs are freaking awesome. I can just eat them two at a time. Hot dogs in a blanket, wings, and here's one last thing: don't do this. Don't be the person who brings the veggie platter, please, or the fruit salad. That's not what this is for. We're here to have a good time. You could be healthy tomorrow. Don't be the person who brings the veggie platter.
Is there someone that that actually brings the veggie platter? I feel like that's a home field type of cooking right there.
And it's
I
not
feel
even
like it's the person hosting that puts out the crudité.
it's not even like that they even like cut it up. It's like one of the ones you just buy at the store and they just peel the top off and the ranch dressing and
Oh
go.
my God.
Like, just that's
What can I bring to your party? A veggie platter?
it's always somebody.
That's
You don't go to
not
parties
what
where somebody does that?
the party.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just telling people out there, don't be that person. Nobody wants that. Nobody. And then wherever you are, it's just going to go bad in their house in like 2 days. And don't bring the fruit salad. It's 90% cantaloupe. It's just, we're here. Hot dogs in a blanket. Bring some wings. Bring some sliders are like a big new thing. That's cool. Taco dip. There's a million different things you could bring. Don't bring the veggie platter.
No, yeah, do not bring the veggie platter at all. Ryan, very quickly here with the final 20 seconds, you can even just list it off here at a Hallam family function or even just a party. What is going to be guaranteed there besides your buffalo chicken dip?
The eggs, the dip, the beer, the usually barbecue, like so wings and barbecue chicken. I like to make kebabs, like chicken and beef kebabs with different veggies on them. That's the one time veggies are okay.
The buzzer sounds, and that is it for the 5-on-5 with Ryan Hallam. Got some very good information. You also got a buffalo chicken dip recipe as well. Garlic, that's something we learned. David Robinson over Tim Duncan, more important franchise player, huh? Activities that this guy wants to do.
Here we go.
He wants to go to the movies. That's what he wants to do when he's done with quarantining. And also, Tony V, is he the GOAT? Survivor watchers, let us know as always at Fantasy Alarm. You can follow Ryan at Fighting Chance on Twitter. I'm Justin Fensterman. You can follow me at Fantasy Sports. And Ryan, thank you so much for joining me.
Good time, man. Let's do it again.
Another edition of 5-on-5 on FantasyAlarm.com. Take care.